And I have the pleasure to introduce two individuals who come from a family that goes back at least 2 generations with mine in Holosulu. And they are Attorney Salma Rasul of the Philippine Center for Islam and Democracy, and her brother Cheng Rasul. Is Cheng still here? He is roaming around. But we go back where our parents used to be in short pants and that sort of thing, yeah? My late uncle, my mom's eldest brother, was best friends with Ambassador Abraham Rasul. They all grew up in Holosulu. Let me say a few words about our guest speaker today. He completed his pre-medical degree at the Far Eastern University in Manila. He finished his medical degree at the PMC College of Medicine Foundation in Antipolo, Rizal. In August 1988, he successfully hurdled the physician licensure examination. He undertook graduate studies in governmental management and master's in public administration at the Mindanao State University in Marawi City. He obtained a degree in master's in business administration at Southwestern University in Cebu. He underwent a series of trainings in leadership and management with focus on managing a high-performing organization at the Development Academy of the Philippines in Tagaytay. As a medical doctor, over 24 years he specialized in family medicine, and for the past 4 years he has been chairman of the Bangsamoro Development Agency, or BDA, which is the development arm of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. He served the BDA in various capacities since it was created in 2002. He is the founding chairman of the SMD General Hospital, Marawi City, where he served as medical director for 16 years. He is also founding chairman of the SMD Foundation Academy of Marawi City, a post which he has held since 2004. He is co-chair of the steering committee of the World Bank-managed Mindanao Trust Fund Reconstruction and Development Program. He chairs the program advisory panel of the Tadiria program, a joint collaboration with UNICEF, the Australian Embassy, and other partners. He is co-chair of the steering committee of the JICA-supported Capability Development in Conflicted Areas in Mindanao. He is chairman of the Project Steering Committee of the Bangsamoro Development Plan. A year prior to his designation to work in BDA, he served as member of the Technical Committee of the MILF Peace Negotiating Panel and was also designated as core member of the Philippine Government MILF Ad Hoc Joint Action Group. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to join me in welcome our guest speaker today, all the way from Mindanao, the chairman of the Bangsamoro Development Agency, a fellow Mindanaoan, Dr. Saffrullah M.Dipatuan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. His Excellency Ambassador Bill Tweddle of the Australian Embassy, His Excellency Ambassador Neil Reeder of the Canadian Embassy, officers and members of the Philippine Mining Club, other distinguished dignitaries, guests and participants, friends from the private sector, my colleagues in the Bangsamoro Development Agency, good morning and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Let me start by thanking my sister here, Attorney Salma Rasul. Actually, when she first emailed me regarding this activity, I was thinking that it would only be a focus group discussion wherein we will be sitting with 10 or 20 people. But now we are really overwhelmed by the generous attendance in this forum. And of course, the distinguished organizers of this gathering. Friends, gatherings like this provide us the opportunity to interact with honorable and peace-loving people like you who are prone to be misinformed by sensationalized and exaggerated stories about our region that are, more often than not, far from the truth. Your invitation to us came at an opportune time when the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro, a product of more than 17 years of negotiation between the Moro Islamic Liberation Front and the government of the Philippines, was signed on March 27, 2014, and the Bangsamoro Basic Law, a law drafted by the Bangsamoro Transition Commission that will govern the Bangsamoro core territories, is being hotly debated and deliberated in Congress. And thereto, we have just completed and turned over the Bangsamoro Development Plan, or BDP, to the MILF Central Committee on November 2, 2014 at Camp Darapanan, Maguindanao, and presented the same at the Philippine Development Forum on the Bangsamoro in Davao on November 5 to 6, 2014, in the presence of all stakeholders in Mindanao, such as cabinet secretaries and other high-ranking government officials, members of the MILF Central Committee, international aid agencies and development partners, member of the Diplomatic Corps, civil society organizations, the academe, private sector representatives, media practitioners, and others. We are glad that no less than His Excellency President Benigno S. Aquino III and MILF Chairman Alhaj Murad Ibrahim found time to grace the said forum. In fact, the expression of support and commitment by the President during his keynote address was very encouraging. It is very delighting to observe that after jointly reaching this point in the pursuit for peace in Mindanao, the MILF and the government of the Philippines are convinced that the only right move is to move forward. Now, let me start with the overview of my presentation, which is composed of 6 parts as follows. Part 1, the GPH MILF peace process in order to provide the contextual background. Part 2 will be the brief panoramic presentation of the natural resource base of the Bangsamoro. And Part 3, brief presentation of the most important highlights of the Bangsamoro Development Plan that we have just completed. Part 4, a discussion of mining and minerals in the Bangsamoro, and Part 5, recommendations on moving forward in the short and medium term. The peace process between the government and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. Of course, I will not be covering the whole spectrum, but I will just focus on the Bangsamoro Development Agency. The Bangsamoro Development Agency is the development arm of the MILF, which is an offshoot of the ongoing peace process between the Philippine government and the MILF. It was created in June of 2002 after the humanitarian, rehabilitation, and development aspects of the GPH-MILF peace agreement was signed on May 7, 2002 in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And being a product of the peace process is mainly the reason why our activities are always aligned with the peace process. Our mandate was strengthened when the Framework Agreement on the Bangsamoro, or FAB, was signed in October 15, 2012. The FAB paved the way for the creation of the Bangsamoro Transition Commission, which was tasked, among others, to coordinate development programs with MILF's BDA, BLMI, and other agencies. Anticipating a scenario of intensive nation building once the Bangsamoro is in place, the MILF Central Committee issued an official directive to the BDA to coordinate with donor and development partners to conduct needs assessment in the Bangsamoro and facilitate the formulation of the Bangsamoro Development Plan. The signing of the Comprehensive Agreement on the Bangsamoro on March 27, 2014 reinforced the confidence of international aid agencies and partners on the positive prospects of a long-lasting peace in Mindanao. Indeed, the FAB and the CAB paved the way for the all-out support we received in making the Bangsamoro Development Plan. Presently, the Bangsamoro Basic Law is currently being deliberated in Congress, and we are hoping that it will be enacted soon and mangled so that crucial time in the transition period is not wasted. Once the BBL is ratified, it will lead to the establishment of the Bangsamoro government. The Bangsamoro government is a new political landscape in Mindanao. Indeed, the BBL will be the necessary trigger in the emergence of a new political landscape in Mindanao called the Bangsamoro, which is an expression of the aspiration of the Bangsamoro people for a genuine and meaningful autonomy. The Bangsamoro will have an asymmetric relationship with the Philippine government. It is going to be a ministerial type of government, while the central government remains to be presidential unitary type. There will be clear delineation of powers and authority between the two, such as reserved, concurrent, and exclusive. Reserved powers are those that remained in the hands of the central government, the Philippine government. Concurrent powers are those that are shared between the central government and the Bangsamoro government, while exclusive powers are those that pertains only to the Bangsamoro. Let me cite to you some very relevant provision in the framework agreement that deals on our present subject matter. On the annex on power sharing of the FAB, Part 3, Section 3, number 29, it says, the Bangsamoro government has exclusive power over its ancestral domain and natural resources. And furthermore, the parties agree that sustainable development is crucial in protecting and improving the quality of life of the Bangsamoro people. To this end, the Bangsamoro shall develop a comprehensive framework for sustainable development through the proper conservation, utilization, and development of natural resources. So, before any kind of investment can come into our territories, we have to make sure that it complies with our framework for sustainable development geared towards the proper conservation and protection of our natural resources. Let me show you a glimpse of the natural resource base of the Bangsamoro in the following slides. These are the core territories of the Bangsamoro, which will be composed of, first, the present area of the ERMM, composing of 3 provinces and 2 cities. The cities of Cotabato in Maguindanao and Alamitan in Basilan. 6 municipalities in Lanao del Norte, and several barangays in North Cotabato that voted yes during the armed plebiscite. And armed contiguous areas whose local government official will pass a resolution signifying their intention to be included, or upon petition of 10% of its registered voters 2 months prior to the ratification of the Bangsamoro Basic Law. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where I come from. This is Lake Lanao in Marawi City. The second biggest lake in the Philippines, but the largest in Mindanao, and one of the 10 ancient lakes in the whole world. It has an area of 340 square kilometers. It is the jewel of the Bangsamoro, especially among the Maranaos, which are called the people of the lake, who reside around their lake. This is an aerial view of the Lake Lanao-Agus River Basin. It supports the Maria Cristina hydroelectric plant, the largest source of hydroelectric power in Mindanao. Source of water for Agus hydropower plants of Napocor, which contribute about 50% of the power needs of Mindanao. The Lake Lanao-Agus River watershed is the site of 6 hydroelectric power plants located across the 2 provinces of Lanao del Sur and Lanao del Norte that has an aggregate installed capacity of 719 megawatts. The Lake Lanao was once considered one of the most biodiverse lakes in the world, but persistent abuse through logging and pollution have significantly degraded its water quality. This is the Ligawasan Marsh, the major wetland covering about 288,000 hectares of swamp. Straddles the 3 provinces of Maguindanao, North Cotabato, and Sultan Kudarat. It supports the livelihood of more than 1.1 million people, mostly Maguindanaoan Muslims, through fishing and agriculture. It has rich biodiversity, composing of a total of 218 species of flora and fauna. It is the site of a potential 158 million barrels of oil, according to an article from Ateneo Economics Association on the Mindanao economy. The enchanting Tawi-Tawi Islands. 25% of the coral reef structures in the Philippines are within the provincial boundaries of Tawi-Tawi. 43% of Mindanao's total mangrove area can be found in the ERMM, most of which are found in the province of Sulu and the province of Tawi-Tawi. The Tobataha Reefs National Marine Park, located in the center of the Sulu Sea and northwest of ERMM, is the nation's first marine park and the first natural UNESCO World Heritage Site in the country. Now, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, let me give you a background of the Bangsamoro development plan that we have just finished, because it has it forms the basis for our sustainable development. The Bangsamoro development plan is the blueprint for the development of the Bangsamoro into a just, peaceful, and prosperous society. It aims to address various forms of injustice, which is at the heart of violent conflict in the Bangsamoro, to ensure stability and build confidence over the course of the transition. When we were formulating the plan, we developed our own development framework, which is a combination of three frameworks, such as the Sustainable Human Development Framework, which is composed of several thematic areas, such as economy, culture, environment, security, social, and of course, politics and governance. We combined the 6 Sustainable Human Development Framework thematic areas with the peace-building framework, because we believe that without sustainable peace in Mindanao, there is no sustainable development that could take place. But in addition, we also embedded the Bangsamoro Core Values Framework, composed of the values of accountability, transparency, piety, trustworthiness, justice, inclusiveness, excellence, and vicegerency, to make sure that people who will be working in the Bangsamoro really embody these core universal values in order that we will be able to establish good governance. Now, I just want to show to you some of our identified interventions and some outputs and outcomes that we have identified. Now, in this slide, you will see that we identified interventions in different thematic areas of the plan. But let me just cite as an example of our interventions the areas of economy, livelihood, and infrastructure. One of our desired outcome is reduced poverty and improved quality of life, which is only possible if we create jobs and livelihood, if we increase productivity, if we improve access to markets, if we encourage tourism, promote the role of the private sector and investment, and of course, regional trade. This is in the area of economy and livelihood and infrastructure, and this is also true for other areas. This is our projected impacts. We recognize the need to set socio-economic targets and express them in numbers and percentages. This is how we make plans. But more than the numerical figures, we are after of overall impacts, that is, stability and confidence building in support of political and normalization transition outcomes. And these are things that can hardly be translated into numerical figures. Now, in the short term, we want to sustain the gains of the peace process as well as the governance reforms that is presently being implemented by the Philippine government. And we are confident that if we will be able to get the necessary fundings, we were able to determine in this plan, we will be able to attain a GDP growth rate of 9.7% in 2015 and 12.8% in 2016, which will even exceed that of the GDP rate of the country. In the medium term, we want sustained peace and economic growth to reduce poverty incidence to 40% in 2002, which is from the present 55.8% in 2012. That means that more than 50% of the Bangsamoro people are living below the poverty line. And if we will be able to attain that, that will be equivalent to graduating more than 300,000 people from poverty. This is the financing requirements that we were able to identify in the plan. And you will note, okay. This is the financing gap. The financing gap is 109.447 billion pesos. And during our several meetings with government, especially with the cabinet ministers and the president himself, they give us the commitment that the government will do its best in order to invest in the BDP and, of course, our development partners. Now, let me shift to the private sector. The private sector is given prime importance in the Bangsamoro Development Plan because it is recognized as the real engine for economic growth and development. The private sector, according to the World Bank Development Report in 2012, the private sector is the main engine of job creation and the source of almost 9 of every 10 jobs in the world. Between 1995 and 2005, the private sector accounted for 95% of employment in the Philippines. So, mind you that the Bangsamoro takes serious consideration of this fact. Now, let me shift to the most important discussion that we will be having today. And this is about the mines and minerals in the Bangsamoro. Abundant mineral resources in the Bangsamoro are relatively unexplored because of reasons that I will enumerate later. The aspects of mines and minerals are given very special attention in the framework agreement on the Bangsamoro Annex on Power Sharing. And I quote, "The Bangsamoro government shall have the authority and jurisdiction over the exploration, development, and utilization of mines and minerals in its territory." This is one of the exclusive power of the Bangsamoro government. Throughout the country, of course, there are geographic areas that has potential minerals. But note that in Mindanao, we have 4. Eastern Mindanao, North Central Mindanao, the Zamboanga Peninsula, and Southern Mindanao. Now, with regards to this is a data we have taken from the MGB of the ERMM. And we learned that there are 12 firms that are given permits in the area of the Bangsamoro, but presently we are officially told that there is only one that is very active. This is the SR Langoyan Mining Corporation in Tawi-Tawi. Reportedly, there are also other small-scale mining, but they are not within the radar of the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao because these are mainly regulated by some local government units. And we are receiving some information that irresponsible activities are going on without regard